So I want to talk about something that I think a lot of people are either doing right now, or have done, or are thinking about doing, and almost nobody talks about honestly. Cutting people off, going quiet, disappearing from everyone's life without much of an explanation. And I don't mean ghosting someone you went on 2 dates with. I mean the real version. Pulling back from friends you've had for years, family members, maybe even everyone, all at once. Just going silent. Some people see that and immediately think, that's cold, that's avoidant, that's toxic. But I think the reality is way more complicated than that. And if you've ever done this, or if someone has done it to you, I think what I'm about to share is going to make a lot of things click. Because there's a psychology behind this, and it's actually really important to understand. Okay, so before we get into the why, I think it's worth saying, not everyone who cuts people off is doing it for the same reason. There are actually a few very different versions of this, and they come from completely different places psychologically. The first type is what I'd call protective isolation. This is someone who's been burned. A lot. Maybe by family, maybe by people they trusted, maybe by one really significant relationship that broke something in them. And cutting people off becomes a way to feel safe. It's not that they hate people, it's that connection feels genuinely dangerous to them. The second type is what I call the silent overwhelm. This is someone who's drowning internally. Anxiety, depression, burnout, grief, and they go quiet not because they want to push people away, but because they literally don't have the capacity to show up. They disappear because existing already takes everything they have. The third type is the purposeful pruning. This is someone who's done a lot of inner work, looked at their life, and made a conscious decision that certain relationships are no longer serving them. This one tends to get the most judgment from the outside, but it's often the healthiest version of all three. And then there's a fourth type. The one that does require some honest self-reflection, and that's using isolation as a way to avoid accountability or avoid growth, to stay comfortable. This one's worth examining if you recognize yourself in it. So which one are you? Or which one is the person you're thinking about? Because that changes everything about how we understand what's happening. Here's where it starts for a lot of people, and this goes all the way back to childhood. In attachment theory, which was developed by John Bowlby and built on by a lot of researchers since, there's something called avoidant attachment, and it develops when, early on, a child learns that reaching out for connection either doesn't work or comes with pain. Maybe their parents were emotionally unavailable. Maybe they were told not to be too sensitive. Maybe every time they needed someone, that person wasn't there, or worse, was there in a way that hurt them. So the child's brain does something really smart and really sad at the same time. It learns to not need people. It learns to self-contain, to be independent not because it's freeing, but because depending on others felt unsafe. And those patterns don't just disappear when you become an adult, they follow you. So the adult who cuts everyone off without explanation, there's a good chance that somewhere underneath that is a person who learned a long time ago that closeness equals getting hurt. This one doesn't get talked about enough. Some people don't cut others off because they're avoidant or wounded. They cut people off because they are completely and utterly exhausted. We live in a world that demands constant availability. Reply to this, show up to that, be present, be engaged, perform wellness, perform happiness, maintain the friendships, maintain the family relationships. And some people reach a point where the social world stops feeling like a source of energy and starts feeling like another thing draining them. And when you're in that place, when everything feels like it costs more than you have, sometimes silence is the only resource left. It's not a decision made out of coldness. It's made out of survival. This is one I find really fascinating. There's actually research on what happens to people's social networks during periods of deep personal transformation. And what happens is, they shrink significantly. When someone is going through a real identity shift, leaving a religion, escaping a toxic dynamic, recovering from addiction, healing from trauma, questioning everything they were raised to believe, the people from their old life can start to feel like a threat to the new person they're becoming. Not because those people are necessarily bad, but because being around them pulls them back into the version of themselves they're trying to leave behind. And sometimes, the only way to fully step into who you're becoming is to create space from who you used to be. It can look like abandonment from the outside, but from the inside, it can feel like the most necessary thing in the world. Some people have been through genuinely difficult things. Abusive relationships, toxic family dynamics, friendships that were quietly destroying their mental health. And they've done the work to get out, and they're not willing to let those things back in. So when they cut someone off, it's not drama, it's not cruelty, it's a boundary. A firm, deliberate, I know what this costs me and I'm doing it anyway boundary. And honestly, that deserves a little more respect than it usually gets. Here's something I want you to really sit with for a second. Most people who cut everyone off, they're not doing it from a place of power. They're doing it from a place of pain or depletion or self-protection. And a lot of the time, it costs them too. There's this thing called the loneliness paradox, where someone is simultaneously craving connection and being completely unable to tolerate it, where they want people around, but the moment people get close, something inside them shuts down or pushes back. That is an exhausting way to live. To want something you can't let yourself have. To miss people you've chosen to leave. To wonder sometimes if you made the right call, and then remember why you made it, and then wonder again. A lot of people who go quiet aren't cold. They're actually incredibly sensitive. So sensitive that they had to build walls not to keep people out, but to keep themselves in one piece. And understanding that doesn't mean you have to accept it if it's hurt you, but it might change the story you're telling yourself about why it happened. Okay, so if you're someone who does this, who cuts people off, who goes quiet, who pulls back, I'm not here to tell you that you're wrong, but I do want to ask you some honest questions, not to challenge you, just to make sure you're doing it consciously and not just on autopilot. Question 1. Is this protection or avoidance? There's a difference between walking away from something genuinely toxic and walking away from something uncomfortable. Both can feel the same in the moment, but one leads to growth and the other leads to a smaller and smaller world. Ask yourself honestly, am I cutting this person off because they genuinely harm me? Or am I cutting them off because being close to anyone right now feels like too much? Question 2. Are you leaving or are you disappearing? Leaving is conscious. It's a decision made from a place of some clarity, even if it's painful. Disappearing is something else. It's often more about escaping than deciding. And the difference matters, not just for the other person, but for you. Because disappearing tends to follow you. You can change your location or your contact list and still be running from the same thing. Question 3. Is the silence temporary or permanent? Sometimes you just need space, a real break. Time to breathe, to regroup, to figure things out without the noise of other people's expectations. That's not only okay, it's healthy. But there's a difference between taking space and building a permanent wall. And it's worth being honest with yourself about which one you're doing. Question 4. Is there one person you could actually let in? Not everyone. Just one. Because complete isolation, even when it starts as protection, can over time make you more fragile, not less. We're wired for connection. Completely cutting that off doesn't make you stronger. It usually just makes you lonelier. You don't have to open the door to everyone, but maybe consider keeping it cracked for one person you actually trust. And if you're watching this because someone cut you off, and that's the real wound here, I just want to say, that hurts. It genuinely does. Especially when you don't get an explanation. When someone you cared about just goes quiet and you're left holding all the questions. And sometimes the answer really is about you. Something that happened, something that was said, something that shifted. But a lot of the time, it's not about you at all. It's about where they are, what they're carrying, what they're trying to protect themselves from. That doesn't make it hurt less, but it might make it make more sense. And the most important thing I can tell you is this. Don't let someone else's inability to stay become your story about whether you're worth staying for. Those are two completely separate things. Look, whether you're the person who cuts people off or you're the person on the other side of that silence, I think what this all comes down to is the same thing. People are complicated. The way we love, the way we protect ourselves, the way we handle pain. It's all shaped by things that happened long before the relationship you're thinking about right now. Understanding that doesn't mean excusing everything. It doesn't mean you have to take someone back or forgive something that genuinely hurt you. But it does mean you can stop making this simple story that people who pull away are just cold or selfish, and start seeing the fuller, more human picture. If this one hit close to home, drop a comment. I genuinely read them. And share this with someone you think might need to hear it. You'd be surprised how many people are sitting with exactly this right now. Take care of yourself. Seriously. I'll see you in the next one.